Welcome to Predictable Revenue Radio, hosted by Patrick Morrissey, Chief Marketing Officer at Altify, the sales transformation company. At Predictable Revenue Radio, we believe the only way to unlock sustained growth is to deliver predictable revenue by delivering insights, thought leadership, and best practices on how to improve sales velocity. So sit back, all that and more is coming your way as we turn it over to our host, Patrick. Hey, Patrick.
Good morning, Paul. How are you this morning?
I am always excited. You come up with some crazy topics, and this one is seems like the craziest of all. AI and the rise of the account-based approach to everything?
Exactly.
Got to be one that I'm going to perk my ears up and listen to here.
Well, the reality that we live in is, sales and marketers is everybody's trying to do it smarter. They're trying to do it faster, and they're trying to do it more predictably. The problem is that the buzzwords sometimes get in the way of actual practical strategy and reality. And the good news is we've got an expert on the line today to actually cut through the jargon and get into what's real and what's the so what for senior sales leaders, senior marketing leaders around account-based marketing, analytics, artificial intelligence, and just how do you get something sold more effectively. So I'm pleased to welcome to the program friend and colleague, Nipul Chokshi. Nipul, good morning.
Good morning, Patrick. Great to be here.
Great to have you join us, because what you're in the middle of what are arguably the two biggest buzzwords or the two biggest trends going on, not just in Silicon Valley, but in sales and marketing writ large, around account-based marketing and around AI. And I want to get into the so what of that and really maybe pull the covers back to try to separate the hype from the reality. But before I do that, give us a little bit of background on you and also what you're up to at Lattice Engines.
Sure, absolutely. I run marketing for Lattice Engines. We are a B2B SaaS platform provider for sales and marketing teams. Sales and marketing teams leverage our platform to do better targeting and to run campaigns a lot more efficiently and effectively with the use of AI and data. And so I've been here for almost 5 years now. It's been a crazy ride. Prior to that, I actually worked with you, Patrick, at a company called DataSift. Prior to that, I was at a variety of other companies, including Yammer, Marketo, Mercent Systems, doing a bunch of different things, ranging from product management to product marketing.
You've seen the film and had, responsibility and leadership roles in product, in marketing, now running marketing in arguably one of the hottest segments around AI and around predictive analytics. So I want to start with trying to demystify this conversation a little bit, but give me your practitioner definition of both account-based marketing and then juxtapose that with, AI and what role AI plays in account-based marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of buzz and buzzwords, if you will, around both of these topics for sure. Account-based marketing, the way I like to think about it, it really is a business strategy and a go-to-market strategy. It's something that companies have been doing since the dawn of time. I remember when I started my career in marketing, I worked at Siebel Systems. As part of the financial services vertical, we had a list of 10 top U.S. banks that we wanted to go into. And part of my job as a product marketer there was to develop very bespoke portals for each of those banks, where we would deliver content and value propositions that were very specifically tailored to each of the different banks that we wanted to target. Essentially, that's account-based marketing right there, which is, marketing and sales align on a list of target accounts that they want to engage and convert, and then they develop the value propositions that are very much personalized to each and every buyer within those target accounts. It's in stark contrast with, just generic spray and pray marketing, where you start with your product to begin with, list out your value propositions, and then send spam via email. You'll send some ads to try to gain interest around that product value proposition. Account-based marketing turns that concept on its head, where instead of starting with your product and your own internal company value proposition, it really is more about starting and understanding who's the audience you're targeting, what do they care about, and then engaging them with very personalized and relevant value propositions.
Yeah, and you're actually hitting on something that I wanted to get your insight on, because I see this film every single day, both on the marketing side and on the sales side. And this notion of engage and convert and pragmatically trying to do a better job of finding the right people is great. The challenge I see with account-based marketing, particularly if you put on your sales hat for a second and you talk to the CRO or you talk to a senior sales leader, and they say, well, we just need some more marketing. Or if you can just do that ABM thing, we're going to drive some more business. And it assumes for a second that the salespeople, as well as the marketing people, have a shared understanding about both what is marketing's role, but maybe more importantly, to the point you just raised, who is the customer? Who is it that we want to talk to? And why do they even care about our value prop? How often do you find that to be a challenge in trying to architect you describing ABM as a business strategy and actually turning this from a buzzword and an acronym into something that's functionally helping drive pipeline and revenue?
Yeah, absolutely. So from a challenge standpoint, that is, just kind of getting everybody on the same page between sales and marketing on who your target buyer is, and making sure that you really understand and you have the right insights so that you're really targeting the people who are most likely to engage with your marketing and your sales outreach so that you can convert them in a more pragmatic way, as you said. That's the primary challenge that most companies that I've encountered run into. And so to that end, that's also where data and AI comes into play. With most companies, when you start doing account-based marketing, what most marketing teams wind up doing is they go to the sales team and say, hey, who do you think we should be selling to? And of course,
right.
The sales rep will say, oh, well, we should sell to account A, B, C, D, where A, B, and C, and D are just the accounts that they just closed in the last quarter, right?
Of course.
So it's a good starting point, but you often are left with a lot of blind spots there. You might miss out on selling to company E, F, G, and H because the sales team just didn't happen to close companies that look like those in the last quarter, right? And so that's where AI and data are really helping to drive that alignment, because it enables you to be a lot more data-driven when it comes to getting sales on the same page with respect to who they should be targeting and why. I have a great story. One of our customers, they do account-based marketing. That's their primary go-to-market model. They sell to enterprise companies, and a lot of their marketing investment is really focused on events. It's a traditional conversation when it comes to doing events, field events. Marketing goes to sales and say, hey, where should we actually have these events? And most sales reps will say, I want to have it in my territory or in my backyard, right?
Of course.
That ultimately doesn't result in the optimal mix of events geographically. And so what they did was they used AI and data to really understand within their universe of target accounts, who are the A accounts, who are the B accounts. And they actually mapped them on a Google map. And they looked to see where the clusters of the A and B accounts were around the country. And that drove that discussion between sales and marketing around where they should be investing in their field events. And so, again, what we're finding is that challenge around that alignment, really the AI and data is a good jumping off point for sales and marketing to kind of get on the same page and really kind of have a more objective, data-driven conversation around which accounts they should actually be targeting.
And then talk to me about how that materializes in that handoff. You talked about engage and convert. Well, then the conversion implies a transition from marketing to sales. And there's this notion that AI is just going to help me sell a lot more stuff. And so it's going to make me like the bionic man of selling. It's just going to supercharge my sales. But there's an inherent assumption there that you just raised, which is, hey, the data's got to be good and we've got to have some data, as well as we've got to have a shared perspective of who are we trying to get to, frankly, and what does good look like in terms of our ideal customer profile. So from a sales perspective, how does that translate into more conversions and more revenue?
Yeah, absolutely. So really, you mentioned something that I necessarily believe is true when you're doing account-based marketing, when you're selling to enterprise companies, is that handoff between sales and marketing. Traditionally the funnel's been such where marketing was responsible for the top of the funnel. There's some handoff, and then sales is responsible for kind of engaging and converting that particular buyer. If you want to do ABM right, though, based on what we've seen within our customer base, it's more of a blended model where sales and marketing are going to be working together in order to engage with the buyer in a multi-touch, multi-channel fashion across the entire buyer journey. And so what this means is generally marketing tends to start by running some ads to drive awareness within their target accounts. And those ads are constantly running throughout the buyer journey. Now, they might change some of the content depending on the accounts they are targeting, some of the use cases that may be more relevant to these accounts, and so on and so forth. But those ads generally are kind of the air cover ads that are running throughout the buyer journey. At the same time, you have your SDR team do outreach. So rather than just doing cold calls, what they'll do is they'll use the insights and the data around the ideal customer profile to be able to really hone in on the value prop. So when they're doing that cold call, they're a lot more informed, and they're a lot more data driven in terms of the conversation that they're having. And so there'll be sales outreach, and corresponding to that, there'll be some marketing emails that go out. So what we've seen is rather than having a handoff, it really tends to be a multi-touch, multi-channel engagement where it's a series of touches where marketing engages and sales engages, and they do it in unison. And the key to that is really making sure that everybody's talking about that same value prop. You don't want the ad to talk about, one value proposition, talk about low cost value proposition, while the sales rep goes in and says, hey, this is all about, kind of a sophisticated turnkey solution that we're offering you. So the idea is that we've actually seen when it boils down to it, it's less about a handoff and more about sales and marketing working together across the buyer journey to be able to engage across all of these different channels in a coordinated way.
Yeah, I would violently agree with you. And you hit on something at the top that I think probably I want to get you to double click on, which is the buyer journey, because a lot of sales and marketing, disconnects happen because you're not having the same conversation about the same things, much less measuring it in the same way. And where you started with your disagreement on the assertion of the handoff is that this is an ongoing dialogue that's happening between marketing and sales, but it's organized around buyer journey. Is that a fair assessment?
That's exactly right. So Informatica, they're a customer of ours, for example. They're actually employing account-based strategies against their entire universe of mid-market accounts. Now, for mid-market for Informatica is really any company with more than $1 billion in revenue. It works out to be about 80,000 companies that they're employing these account-based strategies. And so what they're doing is exactly what I described, which is kind of a multi-touch, multi-channel engagement strategy where using a variety of different buying signals, right? For each of those 80,000 accounts, they're able to track, what are people actually interested in out on the internet with regards to searches that they're doing, content that they're downloading on third-party websites. What are they interested in on informatica.com? And so what they'll do is they'll use all of those signals to be able to identify what's the best value proposition for each of these accounts. And once they've determined that, what they're doing is then engaging each of those accounts using LinkedIn ads, sales outreach, email. They've got Google AdWords going. And so they're able to do it in a very personalized way across all of these channels in a very coordinated fashion.
That's excellent. And I actually want to come back to that and ask you a couple of follow-up questions, but let's pause for a quick second and pay the bills, and then we'll circle right back.
You're only as successful as your customers, and that demands the need for an exceptional sales execution, revenue retention, and customer success. The challenge for most sales leaders and their teams, however, is that their sales process just doesn't match how their customers buy. Sustained growth isn't possible because the revenue team isn't aligned with customers and prospects. With Altify's sales transformation solutions, companies can deliver predictable revenue growth. Yes, we said predictable revenue growth. They can also acquire and retain customers, and they can collaborate across the revenue team to qualify and win new business while delivering value that unlocks cross-sell and upsell opportunities. Built natively on the Salesforce platform, Altify helps salespeople, managers, and executives achieve sustained revenue growth. They help accelerate sales performance for Autodesk, Comcast, GE, Honeywell, Salesforce, Tableau, and United Healthcare. They can do the same for you. Visit Altify.com, just like it sounds, Altify, Altify.com.
And welcome back. We're talking today with Nipul Chokshi, who's the VP of Marketing for Lattice Engines. And really, the headline here is not just the rise of AI, but account-based everything. And when we stepped away, Nipul, you were talking about, you're using Informatica as an example, but really a coordinated alignment across the entire customer journey between sales and marketing, trying to facilitate a value-driven conversation that was really focused on what was most important to the customer and to the journey. And I'm curious from your perspective, having had a front row seat at the rise of account-based marketing over the last several years, as well as AI as an enabling technology, is what changes has that, what's the good news and the bad news about the changes it requires an organization to think and to actually action as they go to market? Because it sounds great in theory when you've got multi-touch, and the example you gave was a great one around customer journey. But I find a lot of companies talk customer journey and they talk about account focus and they talk about being customer centric, but they're still operating in silos and they're still highly disconnected in terms of how they think about the team, how they think about the funnel, and how they think about their go-to-market.
Absolutely right. So when the rubber hits the road, what we found, with companies like Informatica, AT&T, and all these other companies that are doing account-based marketing at scale, that alignment is really critical. Fact of the matter is, though, when you go and engage with your sales counterparts as a marketer and say, hey, I don't want to just send out spams anymore. I don't want to just have random ads showing up to random people and then bringing you random leads. I want to make sure we're on the same page with regards to the accounts that we're actually engaging in. That's a good start. I don't think that there's any sales leader out there that's going to dispute that. So when the rubber hits the road, that alignment conversation is absolutely critical. Again, folks that have done it really well, again, will rely on that data and the insights that AI can provide to really identify who your target accounts are, right? Who are those shared list of accounts and contacts within those accounts that you should be pursuing as part of your strategy. So that's the first piece. The second key to success, I would say, with regards to account-based marketing is, if you look at it and think about some of the story that I just described, it's not like Informatica did it all at once. You need to make sure that you're looking at the resource capabilities, availability within your company. What's your capacity to do it? You want to start out and highlight small wins and then engage appropriately and expand appropriately. So to that end, most customers that we work with generally will start out with, they'll align around their target accounts, identify the ICP that they're going after, and then say, okay, let's start with one channel. Let's make sure that we've got awareness that we're driving within our target accounts. Okay, now that we've driven awareness within our target accounts, how can we make sure that sales counterparts are appropriately armed to be able to engage with them further? Okay, so our sales counterparts are now doing outreach. How do we make sure that we provide additional support to sales by sending emails from marketing? Maybe we want to do an event. Maybe we want to do direct mail to help kind of bolster that outreach and drive that engagement within the target account. So the idea here is there is kind of a crawl, walk, run aspect to this, where you don't want to do everything all at once. You do want to, based on your own internal capacities, you want to engage, and expand your focus on the list of target accounts in a more measured way. And then the third piece is you're not just aligning with sales on your target accounts. You also want to make sure that there's alignment between sales, marketing, and executives around what your success criteria are. Right? How do you know that your account-based marketing is actually going to be a success? Right? There's different measurements that you can take. Serious Decisions actually has a great framework. We did a webinar on it just like a month back. and I can send you the link. But depending on whether you're in the crawl, walk, and run stage, there's different metrics, right? So if as part of the crawl stage, what you're doing is you're running an ad campaign to make sure that you're driving awareness, driving people from your target accounts to come to your website. You may just want to make sure that you're measuring click-throughs on those ads from your target accounts. Look at the website traffic and see how that's increasing after running the target accounts. So it's really important to, be upfront across sales, marketing, and the executive stakeholders and make sure that everybody's in sync with respect to what are the actual metrics we're going to measure so that we can call this thing a success.
Absolutely. And how much time do you need to run, or how much data do you need to have actually evaluate success? Because, certainly an account-based, strategy is a long game, but everybody's in the business of results now and make the quarter now. So when you start to think about crawl, walk, run in those different phases, any prescriptive guidance in terms of, how long and how much and who needs to be at the table to evaluate those metrics, and how do you tune them going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So you're spot on that when it comes to account-based marketing, you're generally going after companies with long sales cycles, right? And you're dealing with long sales cycles anywhere from like 6 months to 18 months. You probably don't always want to say, hey, I'm going to use even pipeline generated as kind of a key metric there, right? And so depending on kind of the segment that you're targeting, there's, again, different metrics, right? So if the problem is you're going after a market where it's a new market, you don't necessarily have a lot of brand awareness within your target accounts, maybe the right metric is just making sure that your ads are actually driving the right people to your website, right? So, and that's a perfectly fine metric that you can use as a leading indicator to identify whether something's working or not. You don't have to actually wait until an opportunity is created, which may take several months down the line in order for that to actually happen. If, however, you're going after existing customers, you're doing a cross-sell or an upsell into a buying group that's already got an established relationship with you. In that case, you've probably got smaller sales cycles, in which case it may be more appropriate to actually look at pipeline generated as well as the actual revenue itself that's been generated itself. So depending on the segment that you're going after, there's, again, different levels of different types of metrics. I almost classify all these metrics as engagement metrics. What kind of engagement are you getting within your target accounts? At the top of the funnel, if you're driving awareness, it's all about getting people to your website and that website engagement. If it's all about, if you're targeting cross-sell, upsell within your existing customers, where you're selling to an existing, a group that you have an existing relationship with, maybe it's more about, the pipeline and revenue that's actually created.
Yeah, and you hit on the most important metric when you were giving some of the framing of the metrics conversation to begin with, which is it's all about, closed won business. And I know that you're, from having the good fortune to having worked with you in the past, that you're a very sales-oriented, sales-focused marketer. So as we start to get towards the end of our time here, who is from your perspective, Nipul, the best sales leader you ever worked with? And what did you learn that really is informing not just how you manage your team from a marketing perspective, but also the types of help you're giving to your clients?
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to sales leaders, I've actually had the good fortune to work with a variety of really good sales leaders. I would say that all of them share a variety of interesting characteristics that help drive their team success and the overall company success. First is almost invariably the best sales leaders that I work with think about it not as sales, but they think about it as a sales and marketing or a revenue team problem, if you will. So everything that's done, they realize that, again, it's not just sales that's going to, while sales plays a critical role in terms of closing deals, there is support that they'll need to rely on. And so they almost have kind of that big tent approach, if you will, to marketing, where when it comes to driving pipeline and revenue, they know that they've got levers, not just within sales, but in marketing as well. So they think of it as a revenue team problem rather than just a sales team problem when it comes to revenue generation. I would say that that's the number one characteristic of probably the best, of the best sales folks that I've worked with.
100%.
Another key characteristic for outstanding sales leaders that I've realized, they're very much data driven. Even if they don't always rely on Salesforce dashboards and reports, they tend to be very data driven in terms of what are they seeing in the market? Are there things that are working, things that are not? And then they're using that data to kind of adapt their approach. It's no longer enough for a sales leader to just be kind of that relationship builder. It's important to also kind of look at that data. So I would say that that's another key characteristic that I've found in my experience in working with sales leaders.
Couldn't agree with you more. And I really appreciate the point that you raised about the revenue team, because it is a team sport and there's nobody who does complex selling without getting not just sales and marketing, but the whole team involved. And I'm also conscious of time because I know you've got a market to move and a business to run. So Nipul, and you mentioned serious decisions and a framework and some of the assets you have. If people want to get a hold of you or learn more about Lattice Engines, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, so definitely either email me, Nipul at lattice-engines.com, or tweet me, Nipul C, Nipulc, or just visit us at latticeengines.com, lattice-engines.com, and I'm happy to forward you some of the content that I referenced earlier.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate that, Nipul. You have a fantastic day moving the market. And as Nipul said, it's important to understand in an account-based everything world that this is a strategy conversation. It's not a technology conversation, and it's everybody on the revenue team. So thanks for joining us, Nipul. Have a great day, and thanks to everybody out there.
Thanks, Patrick.
You've been listening to Predictable Revenue Radio with your host, Patrick Morrissey, Chief Marketing Officer at Altify, the sales transformation company. One of the many shows here on the ever-growing Funnel Radio channel for at-work listeners like you.